Welcome into the Freshman Podcast. I'm EJ Manuel,
I'm Dr. Myron Roll.
and we're just some brothers here that want to have some conversations, some fresh takes, some fresh takeaways at the end of these conversations, and really some fresh ideas, and obviously the fresh clothes. As you can see, we come in suited up, ready to go. I guess we should get into the origin of our relationship first.
Yeah.
And I'll start off. I know when I was a recruit coming out of high school, I think my sophomore, junior year, I remember going on my official visit to Florida State.
Yeah.
Very, very excited to come down to Tallahassee from Virginia Beach. And they introduced me to this guy named Myron Roll. And I'm like, okay, I've heard of Myron Roll. And surely enough, man, I had no idea that our friendship, our brotherhood would grow like it has. And that's been 16 years now?
Yeah.
Maybe more than that?
Been a long time, man. When they told
Yeah.
me, Jimbo Fisher told me, hey, we got somebody. And I was like, man, who is this cat? And so I looked you up, and Jimbo told me, we got to get this guy because he's smart, he's a baller, top quarterback, one of the top players in the country. We need to have him. And I had a bit of a pedigree, bro. I'm not going to lie. I had a bit of a pedigree for hosting some top guys when we got there. I mean, I had CJ Spiller,
Yep.
Marvin Austin, Aurelius Ben. Now, granted, none of them came.
Yeah.
So I don't know how good I was, but
Yeah.
when they told me we got to have him, I said, okay, coach, you sign me up. What do we need to do? And at the time, there wasn't like the NIL kind of stuff where, you can just have money to just do whatever you want in Tallahassee, Florida. So Coach Fisher slid me a couple bucks.
Oh, I see. I didn't even know
Slid me
about
a couple
this.
bucks.
Okay.
He said, take him to Guthrie's, get him a gut box,
Yes, sir.
and bring him to my house, and
Yeah.
we'll have a good time. But we did have a good time that night.
We did, man. We had a great time. And it's funny because I know you don't drink at all, and neither did I at the time. Now I sip a little bit, but I didn't know the first thing about ordering a drink. I think we went to Rumble in the Jungle back in the day.
We did.
Which was a Q party over at FAMU or?
Yeah, so it was a Divine Nine party. So I just crossed Kappa Alpha Psi. So I was heavy into Greek life, man. I mean, if somebody asked me to shimmy, I was shimmying and getting my shoulders wet immediately.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I called my brothers up on the football team. I said, man, what the lick read? Like, what we doing tonight? They said, nothing's really happening. So I called my Greek brothers up and I said, what's happening? They said, there's a Q party, the Rumble in the Jungle. And so I brought you there. And I do remember looking at you and seeing your eyes wide open. You're like, man, these are grown women, grown people, man. This is a different experience.
Yeah.
Nah, it was nice, man. We had a good
It
time.
was, man. And I think also, for me, being around you at that time, it was cool because I really saw someone who was truly a student athlete.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of transcended beyond football. Of course, we both wore 3. That's why we added the 3 within the Freshman Podcast. And so for me, it really was somebody to look up to, and I've expressed that to you before, but I think that was so important for me because I felt like as a young athlete, sometimes the guys who want to be a student or the guys who want to also be smart and take school serious, people bash him like, he's soft or he a nerd or he not that I was a nerd, right? Like I took my sports very, very serious, and especially when I'm from a VA, the competition level is high, like 9, 10 years old, the Little League, Pee Wee. But being around you, again, you had aspirations of not just being in the league, potentially being obviously a neurosurgeon, which is what you are, but even getting into politics and stuff. And that was really cool to hear while I was 16, 17 years old. And I think at the time you might have been 19, 20.
Yeah.
I even had aspirations of trying to be a biomedical engineer. I remember me telling you that.
Yeah.
I took Chem 1 my freshman year, and I was like, nah, I don't know about that one. But again, man, it was really cool and powerful for me to see a real student athlete and someone who had aspirations beyond just football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kind of also that looked like me too. You know what I mean? Like not just, someone who I kind of looked at on TV. I was like, okay, I don't really see any similarities. When I looked at you, I really saw myself for my future.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I've always been impressed with you. I've always felt strongly about you. I'm the baby of 5, so I've always had 4 older brothers who I look to for help, inspiration. Never really had a younger brother, and when I met you on your recruiting visit, you wore number 3, like I wore number 3. We bonded that weekend, and even beyond, I just knew that you were special. Your family is amazing. Your parents, I love them. Your sister, you come from outstanding stock, and you had the level of discipline to be great in all things that you wanted to do, which was football, which was school, which is getting into community, which is being a good Christian man. Like all these things you set for yourself to do, and you've done it well. Our lives have been in parallel, even in how we've grown our families and our transitions have happened, which we'll get into. But I just felt the bond and the sort of closeness from that first time we met has just sort of blossomed and continued to groom. And like you
Yeah.
said, it's been decades where we've been brothers, and not a lot of people kind of knew how close we were.
Right.
And I'm glad this podcast has given us that platform
Absolutely.
to show that off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this pod too, man, it just kind of give like the purpose of it, from my lens is, one, to show young people, not even just young black men, just young people in general, that you can really have a goal and you can actually really achieve it. You know what I'm saying? I think now in today's age, everyone, not everyone, but some people just kind of are okay with mediocrity for whatever reason. Like, hey, just it's okay. Like everybody gets a trophy, and if you don't win, hey, it's fine. Like I don't necessarily know if I believe in that. You know what I mean? Like I think it's important to win. I think it's important also to take your L's and learn from them so you can try to win the next time. And so I think we can give some really good vibes on that, some good thoughts on that, some fresh takes with that as well. But I'll probably toss it to you, man. I mean, when you think about this podcast, what do you want to get across?
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think that first, the podcast idea really started from
Right.
you talking to me and saying, I think we need to do this.
Well, it's even deeper than that, though.
It is true.
Because I feel like we would have these long conversations through the voice note, right, on the phone. And I'm talking about 8-9 minutes long type joints. You know what I mean? Like you'll hit me with something, yo, E, I need your thoughts, bro. Da da da. Boom, 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 boom. I'm listening. And this is also hours in between when we actually have a chance to reply. Obviously, you're a surgeon. I'm doing TV. I'm doing radio. We both got families and kids and wives. And so, and shout out to our wives, by the way. Love y'all, who have certainly helped us to get to this point. But through those conversations, I feel like, man, why don't we just put this out there on a medium and get listeners to chime in? Because I really think there's some gold in that stuff.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's an opportunity for people to really just sort of get a front stage view of what we've been discussing on voice notes, on text messages, on in person,
Instagram.
I mean, literally, it's just been consistent.
Yeah.
And the fact that you and I can have conversations that go beyond just sports, something that first connected us, but then our relationship has grown and manifested to a point where there are multiple topics that we can get into: health, medicine, law, business, culture, music, politics. We've hit pretty much everything.
Yep.
And I'm excited about just being sort of an open, vulnerable, safe space for you and I to sort of communicate that and allow other people to sort of, be able to experience that as well. So I think it's going to be dope.
Yeah, I think it's going to be excellent too, because then we can bring in guests from all different walks of life as well. And I think that's the exciting part, for this podcast. It won't just be about sports, you know what I mean? Which, of course, we will hit. We're athletes, you know what I mean, by trade. But I think the fact that, again, you coming from a medicine background, obviously a high scholar, me being in now journalism, covering that, covering sports, obviously. I think it's just a bunch of different walks of life. I think it's important for everybody to share their experience, man. I think now the beauty within podcasts, within, having your own YouTube channel, having social media pages, if you use it the right way, man, you can really not necessarily just parlay it into dollars and cents, but actually really help people.
Right.
You can heal a lot of people.
Right.
And, when I really think about it, we were talking about this earlier, like just with the music, and how powerful that really is, whether it's a good message or not a not so good message. You know what I mean? It really has an effect on people. And I think it's the same way with these types of podcasts, man.
No doubt. So look, I mean, my day job is being a brain surgeon, right? So I'm able to
say that so casually too, bro.
It's like, okay, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it for sure.
Right.
Had a surgery this morning.
There you go.
Well,
Yes, sir. Give me some on that. There you go.
Brother, no doubt. But I'm able to, with a team of nurses, anesthesiologists, techs, everybody who works together in the operating room, we're able to save a life and take care of people in that moment in the hospital, help them, help their families, help them reintegrate back into community. It's a beautiful thing, no doubt. Your vocation, being on TV, being able to analyze, being able to communicate and be a voice for people who don't have a voice, and really sort of reach multitudes of people who tap in and see you and are impressed by you, inspired by you, being eloquent, being articulate, but also being intelligent and having substance behind your analysis. This podcast, I think, gives a sort of a backstage view and an opportunity for us to reach even more ears and more audiences, more eyes. I wrote a book, The 2% Way, that sort of did that a little bit for me as well. But now, I mean, my wife tells me this all the time. She said, Myron, people don't really know like some of the things behind you
Right.
that sort of motivates you, that fires you up, and you are a part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, our friendship has been one where we challenge each other,
Yep. Hold
you
each
know,
other accountable
hold
too.
each other
And it's
accountable,
important.
no
Yeah.
doubt. Check in on each other.
Yeah.
Mental health is super important.
Yep.
We'll get
We'll
into
touch
that
on
as
that.
well.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity. There is one last thing I wanted to speak about
Yeah.
on the genesis of us meeting, because I
Right.
never told you the story,
Okay.
but you got to know it. And maybe this
Okay.
is the spot for you to know it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Right.
so when you came that weekend,
Uh-huh.
you remember I gave you all of my three stuff, right? I
Yep.
gave you like my
Yeah.
three sweatshirts, my
I
pullovers, and
rocked all
stuff.
that like the following Monday back at Bayside.
Bayside,
Yes,
baby,
sir.
Bayside. Yeah,
Yeah.
baby. Shout out.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I gave you that stuff, and I was like, cool. And then I remember walking into the Moore Center, right? I remember walking like into our football facility, and there were these two women who I mean, everyone on the football team, was attracted to, right? We're all like, oh, there's amazing. They walk up to me, and I'm like, oh, this might be my shot. Like, finally, like nobody can shoot at him, and here I am. And I'm sort of getting fired up. I'm like, okay, this is my moment, right?
Yeah.
So they said, where's that guy that you were with this weekend? I said, oh, man, he's back in high school, man. I said, let the brother
He's a
get
junior
here.
in high school.
He's back in
Yeah.
high school.
That's funny.
I said, let the brother get here. Let him get his gut box in. Let him get to the bird. You know what I'm saying? I said, stop shooting your shot. Let him go to prom. Let him enjoy
Funny,
himself.
dog.
Man, it was,
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, man, I said, my guy got it in high school already.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Nah, but again, that's funny, bro. I didn't know that story.
Yeah, that's real though. True
But
story.
yeah. We had some good times, man. And
Yeah.
obviously we'll touch on our experiences at Florida State
Yeah.
and obviously playing games. We were telling the story at dinner last weekend about you flying in from your Rhodes Scholar interview, like some real like some G stuff, bro. You know what I mean? Like I think back then we were kids, if you really think about it. You know what I'm saying? But like it was just again so cool to have a teammate, to have a brother, to have someone who again was my host. Just have those aspirations and then actually follow through with it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have dreams and hopes, and sometimes you can't make those things happen because of circumstances, because of resources, all those types of things. There's a lot that comes in between when you can't actually get it done.
Yeah.
Right. But when you actually see the genesis of an idea flourish into what you are now,
Man.
just saying, man, I'm proud of you for real. That's really cool.
Appreciate that, brother. Speaking of that moment, that Rhodes Scholar moment, that was so amazing, not only for me, but my family, student athletes, my teammates. So much support.
Well, wait, explain what a Rhodes Scholar is for those that may not know.
Well, yeah. So the Rhodes Scholarship comes from Cecil J. Rhodes. Cecil J. Rhodes was a sort of diamond sort of mogul in Southern Africa. And he went to Oxford and created a scholarship for white men of athletic stature to get a free scholarship to Oxford University. So it wasn't intended for people like us or women.
Right. Didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's deep. So, but the Rhodes Scholarship is a prestigious award. It's the highest academic award that any college student can get. Typically goes to people 4.0 students, who do all kind of community service, publish all kind of different sort of academic articles. Not many student athletes get them. Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, he's one. Pat Hayden played quarterback at USC. Bill Bradley, politician, played basketball at Princeton. So there's a few, but not regularly does it go to student athletes. And so I applied for it. There's hundreds of thousands of applicants every year. 32 winners from the United States
Every year.
and so yeah, man. The day that I became a finalist, I drove from Tallahassee to Birmingham, Alabama, with one of my mentors. Did the interview. It was about 20 minutes or so with other Rhodes Scholar judges around. I answered a bunch of questions. I still remember the questions too. The mentoring that I did in Tallahassee, Florida. Why did I graduate college in 2.5 years and not try to get another degree? I was like, well, I'm trying to go to the league, of course.
Right.
Right. What were the 3 books on my nightstand?
Out, yeah.
They asked me about the books on my nightstand. I said I had the Bible, I had Running for My Life by Warwick Dunn, and I had a book called Mountains Beyond Mountains by Tracy Kidder.
Sure.
And then they asked me, President-elect Obama is new to being a president. What would you tell him how to fix healthcare in the United States? And it was a tough question that I think I handled pretty well.
Were you prepared for these questions before you
100%.
had
I was ready.
Okay, so
I
you
had
knew
done
what you were
mock
going to be
interviews.
asked. Right.
Mock interviews. I read. I talked to Rhodes Scholars who had won in the past, ask them what are the kind of questions that you're going to get. And so I was ready. I was definitely
Good, man.
prepared. Just like we were doing in football, man. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll get to this.
It's a lot of
but
parallels, for
the
sure.
preparation
Yep.
for the Rhodes Scholarship, preparation for brain surgery,
Mm-hmm.
preparation for what you do, the interviews that you do, the coverages that you have, it all comes back to the discipline and the focus that we learn as athletes.
Yep.
And I use the same traits
Yeah.
in that moment to help me be successful.
Yeah, I'll double down on that when you talk about the aspect of athletes and how that transcends into business, into politics, into medicine, like you said. Really, any type of goal-oriented occupation, right? Meaning there's an issue that has to get resolved, or there's something that needs to get built, right? Like I think even when I transitioned from the NFL to doing broadcasting, it was really my first time, I'd say, like being, in like a regular job in a way. Even though TV and radio, it's not a regular job per se. Like we're talking about sports, man. Like it's fun, you know what I mean? But just in the way that I prep, I just can't help it. Like I just write everything down, and that's kind of what helps me lock it in my brain. Sometimes I'll even be driving, and if there's a show or an interview that I know I have coming up, asking someone some questions, I'll practice it on air per se. Like when I was a football player, I'd take the script, I walk out there on the field if I had an extra 20 minutes, 30 minutes free, and I'll just go down the field, go through my drop, all that kind of stuff. And I do the same thing with my work now on TV and radio. So it's funny how we pick up those types of, I don't know, just things about us. You know what I mean? Like those. How would you describe that? You know what I mean? Like those remedies or those antics that I just have as a former athlete now that still carries over into my actual job today.
Well, what I think it is, you know what the formula of success is, right? And you know the ingredients that go into that. You've done it your entire life, and now you've transitioned to another career where you're seeing that same formula be used, and success is still being achieved. And so, that's why in medicine, I can't tell you, man. Looking at CT scans, MRIs, X-rays before the surgery, prepping for surgery, is just like putting me back into film study, right? Watching myself on film, watching the opponent, going through the playbooks, making sure if I'm disguising cover two, I'm gonna, make sure I'm showing that cover two shell, then walk down to cover three in the flats. Like I feel like I'm still in the game when I'm not in the game anymore. And by putting myself in that mode, it sort of clicks something into me. So it's like, this is game time now. The lights are gonna shine in the operating room. The patient's here. There's no crowds cheering for it, but it is
somebody relying on you on the table.
Relying on us, right? This table, they all want us to do well, and so let's get after it.
Right.
I think where it really taps in, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, it's when pressure moments happen. I mean, I can't tell you enough, EJ, how when pressure happens in my personal life or in my professional life or in my community life, that it could be easy to step and slide into a moment where you're like, oh man, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to go in a ball. I'm going to be a recluse. I'm going to sort of get away from it rather than like step up to it, take a beat, take a breath, maybe a couple heartbeats and say, I know what to do. I got the fundamentals down. I've been in this moment before and here's how I'm going to execute. Just like when it's 4th and 2, teams driving, everyone's screaming, you need to like focus in that moment, right? Go back to your fundamentals. And so we have a nick in the artery in the brain and it's bleeding and everybody's panicking. Calm yourself down. Go back to the fundamentals because you know how to solve this. You've thought about this before. You've played this play many times in your brain before. And so, bro, the transition and the traits that are seamlessly sort of impact both fields, like you and I, what we're doing now, I can't help football not being a great.
3, and by the way, I call him 3, so y'all will hear me say that and refer to him as that, talking to Myron. But I think even as a parent, like as a dad, okay, like that part was a transition because as much as 3rd and 8 in an actual football game is stressful, baby crying, hungry, diapers dirty, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's real pressure. And like you forget the wipes at home, you already out, you got Target, you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta figure it out. And so sure, my wife could tell you, like I had some real moments where, of course she's more the calming force in our house, to be honest, because I'm somewhat of the, I'm impatient, you know what I mean? I think, and again, by trade, because I come from a job as a football player, even back in college, even in high school. Like when you're a high performer, man, like there's just a certain level of, hey, let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm in a film room or I'm in a coach's room with coaches presenting the game plan. I read it, I look at it, okay, cool, go home and study it, and then the next day I'm expected to have it down.
Yeah.
And not just know it a little bit, but to have it truly down, especially in the NFL. And even in the NFL, you don't get a day, you get it maybe an hour between lunch and then going out there for a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Coach expects you to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn that as well. And another transition, I guess, in life is just now being a father of 3. You know, I have an older son and I have 2 babies. And so it's been good, man, because I feel like as you talk about iron and sharpen iron, I feel like those types of challenges off the field, even now in my own career, have been really helpful for me to grow as a man more than anything too. So it's been good.
You talked about your wife. My wife has been amazing. I've talked about your mother. My mother is phenomenal.
Yep.
You know, we think about the people who have really impacted us and affected us in our life. A lot of it has been women, right? A lot of it has been the women who have looked at us, believed in us more than we believed in ourselves, motivated us. I remember it was one time, my mummy, I call her mummy, that's what we do in the Bahamas, from the Bahamas, as some of you know. My mummy was like, look, man, you know, I was in a very difficult sort of the doldrums of life at the point. I just got cut from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I didn't know, like, man, am I going to keep playing? Am I going to keep going after this dream? Or am I going to move on to the next phase of my life? And she saw me just like not myself, not alive, not energetic, not enthusiastic, didn't want to really go out or do much.
Sure.
I was just in the house eating peas and rice and, you know, getting fat, I guess. But she came into the, she
That
came into the
transition's
room.
hard, yeah.
It was tough, man. She came into the room, and even though I had another
Sure.
option,
You
right?
knew you had something waiting
I
for
knew
you.
I had
Yeah.
somewhere to go.
Right,
Right. I
right.
prepared for this, like you're
Right.
saying, a true student athlete. I put focus in the books so that I can have an option 1B if 1A didn't work out.
Yep.
And I remember her coming to me and saying, you know, look, here's a book that you wrote, your goals. Your first goal was to be an NFL football player. That's done. Let's
Right.
cross this off.
Amen.
Your second goal is to be a brain surgeon. Let's get going.
Let's get it.
I was like, really? That's it. That's all I need to hear.
It's crazy.
And so thinking about the
Wow.
women in my life and your life who have truly, truly sort of inspired us, motivated us, helped uplift us. We have Mother's Day coming up. How do you sort of take to the influence and the impact that these special people have had in your own personal journey?
I'll give a quick story as well. So my mom, this is during the pandemic, all right, 2020. I'm looking at houses in Los Angeles. At that time, I was living out there because I was playing for the Oakland Raiders, and I bought a place during the off season to go train in LA. And so at that point, I was like, I'm ready to get a house. There, you had to get on the list to go to the pool because of the COVID restrictions and all these different things. And my mom just was like, hey, didn't you always want to move to Florida? And mind you, I had met a woman a few months prior who lived in Florida. Now, again, I wasn't thinking about that woman at that time, right? So it kind of like to give you the punchline of the story. And so I was like, yeah, you're right, Mom. So I started looking at some houses in a certain part of South Florida. Always, and you know that too. I've always loved Miami and that whole thing when I was in college.
100%.
And so I started looking, found some homes that I liked, ended up buying one, and I reached out to that woman who I met I guess a few months prior to that point. And I went down there, looked at the house, but also had dinner with her. And again, to fast forward, it ended up being my wife. And so I think back, my mom is literally the person who led me to my wife. Seriously, like by giving me that advice, why don't you just move to Florida? You're looking at LA, California. And I think initially my mom just wanted me back on the East Coast, honestly. You know what I mean? She didn't know that woman as well. I'm talking about my wife, Wilhelmina.
Yeah.
But it's crazy as you were telling that story. I just think, wow, like my mom has always been someone who's kind of kept me, in the right, how can I say, like the right path of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to change my life and help me grow and really get to where I'm at now. But you could even look at that now in just life itself. I think women have always been in roles where, and granted, with women's rights going all the way back, 100 years ago and all that kind of stuff, like there's a lot of suffrage going on. But I think now in 2024, I think this is like the time for women. You know what I mean? Like you see women in powerful positions as CEOs, as a vice president, potentially at some point going to be a full-time president at some point. You see the WNBA, the growth that they've had, probably a little bit to do with the NCAA women's side, how that's grown, and Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's of the world, and how they've now progressed and gone into pro sports. So you see it in a lot of different walks of life, and even as producers in Hollywood, the Issa Raes of the world, those that are out there doing some great stuff, man, and kind of giving pictures that a lot of viewers may not have had a chance to really kind of experience. A lot of that's coming from women.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think for me, how I think about it, women have always been special and spectacular. I mean, I think about even going back to the Bible, like one of my favorite characters in the Bible, Esther, becoming queen and convincing her husband not to slaughter the Jews, and really just thinking about humanity and just being sort of a wonderful steward for God. But you think about the opportunities that women are now having, and now that they're getting these opportunities, and now that these opportunities are becoming more mainstream, you see their potential and their promise grow and rise. And it's a phenomenal thing. You talk about basketball,
Right.
especially college basketball, how much people were tapped in and tuned in to
Right.
South Carolina, LSU, Caitlin Clark in Iowa.
Don
People were watching
Staley.
that with
Yeah,
Dawn
man.
Staley. I mean, people were
Yeah,
watching that
bro.
more than, just NBA.
Then the men's tournament.
Then the men's
Absolutely.
100%.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
so I feel like that uniqueness and their quality and their talent has always been there. But now the investments, the energy,
The resources are behind it.
resources are behind
Yes.
it, and now we're seeing it, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so, and now we're being able to reap the blessings of being able to see these phenomenal women, these phenomenal individuals
Yep.
lead countries, industries, companies, lead leagues,
Yeah.
and it's truly a blessing, especially for us who are fathers of daughters, right?
Exactly.
I have 2 young daughters with Latoya. We have 2 sets of twins, 4
Sure.
kids, and our daughters. I mean, I'm not sure what they want to do, but I would love for a world where they have the opportunity to have limitless potential,
Right.
and not have that glass ceiling that says you can only do this or that. In my everyday walk of walking halls of the hospital, I see medical students who are Black, brown, minorities, underrepresented women being more in the field, doing great things,
Right.
pushing the envelope, saying, I don't have to just be a nurse or a dermatologist or a PT or OT. I can be a surgeon right in the room with those big bad bully of men who
Yeah.
said, this is our space, we're
Right.
going to dominate this territory. No, this is their dominion too, and they do phenomenal work there. I'm sure you're seeing it in
At
journalism
ESPN.
too.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, but I would also want to uncover the why, because and you hit something that I thought was really important. I think now the world is in a place where it's ready for it. Even though I think this should have, a lot of these things, and granted, we're both still young, right? So I can't necessarily say, hey, this should have happened in the 90s. I was a little kid. But I think back, women have been doing some powerful stuff forever. You know what I mean? And even for some of the men that have achieved high things, a lot of it's been because of their wife or because of a woman behind them. Like we just talked about a mom and how they helped guide us before we even really knew. Like you said, bro, imagine had you not made that decision, all right, let me get back into medicine. You don't know where you would be, truthfully. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe you would have delayed something that was already supposed to be on time. And so I think, again, the world is in a really great place. And even to have a podcast like this now, to be able to express yourself, to give ideas, and people are open to that stuff. You know what I mean? And I just think it's a great time to be alive, truthfully. That Drake verse, right, is what a time to be alive. And for a lot of women, especially in sports, it's grown so much. Because I think that place in sports has been where, even like women's college softball, like unfortunately there won't be no softball in the Olympics this year in Paris. And in my work, I asked some of the softball analysts we have that joined the show, and they're like, yeah, it got replaced by like step dancing or some type of dancing, which like, yo, come on, you know what I mean? Like we want to play, I think it's like break dancing or something like that.
Oh,
Which is
yeah,
wild.
I think so.
Yeah, which like, yo, what? Like, but again, I still think, if you turn on ESPN right now, or if you turn ESPN on at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday, you're going to see women's sports. And it's going to be really, really high level, elite talent. And I think that's just a great place to be right now.
Here's a key point too, E, and here's something that I want to challenge you with, because I want to sort of make sure it's on my mind too. And for all leaders or people who want to be in the right side of history,
Right.
there can be moments when we're thinking about this wave or this momentum of women and their rise in all industries of life. There can be moments where people want to place a divide, right, and place women versus men, place Black women versus white women, place foreign women versus domestic women. There can be someone who says we all can't be equal, and you need to be against another person, right? So this conflict feels like sometimes media or news travels faster when there's conflict or there's that sort of negative energy. And so what I challenge you, myself, and other people out there is to be hypersensitive to that and know when that divide is trying to come, right? You can look at some of the comments under the posts that are about Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. and immediately it turns
Divisive.
racial,
Yeah.
abrasive, it turns vitriolic. And you're like, man, why can't we just celebrate two phenomenal athletes who are doing something they're passionate about and love?
Right.
And so I think it's our responsibility. I think it's everyone's responsibility, but certainly if you're a leader, especially if you're a father of daughters, you want to make sure that you're seeing that divide and you stomp it out right away and say, I'm not going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to lower this barrier and I'm going to celebrate this greatness all together and make sure that we're all moving as a team towards what we all want, which is great competition,
Right.
Great excellence, greatness to be displayed on national TV or wherever they're displaying it, and just to enjoy it, to allow other young girls to feel that they have a chance at life and life abundantly, however they see it.
Yeah.
So I think that's our call.
That's a great challenge too, man. And again, I just always try to think of like the why. Like, why is it that people feel some type of way when they see a feud between two athletes? I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, you think about Bird and Magic. You think about Michael Jordan and basically the whole NBA. You know what I mean? Like, Kobe versus Matt Barnes. Like these kinds of, just feuds that like, okay, this is a guy and then this is a guy. But then now you see it in women's sports, and those are like some of the best athletes too. We talking about just from college ranks moving on to now the WNBA, and it almost just seemed like America again. I think part of it, and I'm talking America specifically because that's where these sports are taking place. It's almost like they're not necessarily all the way ready for it. You know what I mean? Like it's too, you know what I mean? Like it's just like America's not truly ready to accept like, yo, there's like some real goats in women's sports too. You know what I mean? Like that can get it done just as good as the men. You know what I mean? So hopefully as time goes, when our daughters are, 18, 19, 20 in their 20s and things like that, it's only going to get better. You know what I mean? So like I said, what a time to be alive and, to be a part of it, like you said, the right side of history and kind of, squat out or stomp out any of those negative types things out there.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. And you think about from women and the time to be alive for their success and their flourishing to other aspects of society where that time may not be as as promising for some other people. And I know you and I have talked about this because we are both sort of similar ilk. We both have similar friends and similar circles who are young professionals in life now, trying to raise families like we are, young families.
Figuring it out, yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And there are these sort of obstacles and roadblocks that are hitting them. And one that we continuously hear about from our friend circle, also just from news and in general, is how difficult this economy is to have your own home, your own place.
Yeah.
Affordable housing has been sort of the key cachet term that a lot of people have been using. You're in South Florida. I live here in Orlando with my wife and kids. How has that sort of market, that conversation happened around the dinner table, around around circles of friends that you have,
right,
when they think about this time and what they need to do to manage economy, money, life, family, and all the things that are coming at you, especially as a young professional just getting into the world?
Yeah, I think it's such a vast conversation because, when you think about affordable housing or you think about simply trying to own a home now in 2024, no matter, especially if you're in these big metroplexes, right, like Orlando, South Florida, New York City. I've lived in San Francisco. I played in some markets where it's like, bro, my rent was super high. You know what I mean? So you can imagine trying to own one of these units. And again, I don't get into the inflation conversation. I'm not the politician guy, right? I'll leave that to you in a few years. But when I try to have conversations with other guys, and again, look, we talking first world problems too, because I'm not going to act like, hey, look, I was very, very fortunate to get an opportunity to play in the NFL. Right. So some of the problems that I may have are different than most, right? And I'm not trying to say that from a high step, like just it is what it is. So I own 2 homes. But at the same time, I think back to when I did own those homes, it was a level of pride that I had because I grew up where my parents owned a home and we had to move out of that home. We lost it. And then we started to rent. And as a child, again, you don't think about these things. You just think about Xbox and, playing outside with your boys, riding your bike and all that kind of stuff. But as I've turned into a grown man myself and I have my own family that I'm providing for now, it makes me even more proud of my dad waking up at 4:30 in the morning every day, bro.
That's amazing.
For 30 something years to go to work. My mom the same way. waking up at 6 to wake me up, make sure me and Amber, my sister, were ready to go to school. He's on the bus, and she was on her way to work as well, working 9-hour, 10-hour day. Come home, make some food for us, take us to practice. It was the whole routine, bro, until we were out and going to college. And now, gratefully, you know, my parents are able to enjoy themselves. My dad golfing every day. My mom's doing real estate. And so, again, a lot of that came from hard work. But I think the key, man, is ownership. Is ownership. And however you can do that, even if it's, you know, starting from a home that you had to fix up, and it's not necessarily that finished product of, oh man, they got the glitz and the glam and this, you know, crazy LED light and the bathroom looks like that. Nah, just start somewhere. You know what I mean? If you can get in somewhere where you can then own your home, I think that's something that I would try to teach to my kids. Because when you renting, I mean, you technically paying somebody else's mortgage. You know what I mean? Now, granted, there's nothing wrong with renting because you still need a house, you need a place to lay your head. And again, you got to provide for a family. But those are the kind of conversations that I have with younger guys, like even some of the guys who just got drafted not too long ago. One of them, I won't say his name, but one of them hit me. He was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm flying to the team. A former player that just got traded from that team, his agents or whatever already texted me saying, 'Hey man, you should buy his house.'" Which I'm like, cool, right? But I'm like, at the same time, take your time. You know what I mean? You haven't even stepped foot in the city yet. Like, really get a chance to kind of get a feel. Okay, do I want to live in the suburbs near the facility? Do I want to live downtown and have more of a, I don't know, like a city vibe, like that kind of thing? And so I feel like it's, of course, you're gonna make mistakes. But I think the more opportunities you get a chance to put your money into ownership versus actually renting and all that kind of stuff, the better. But again, it's just really hard time right now for everybody. Even if you got money, it's still hard to try to get in on a lot of these deals.
And let me push back on you a little bit though, because you started off by saying, you know, you own 2 homes and not everyone can play in the NFL.
Right.
You know, first round pick, EJ Manuel. You know,
Worked hard though, dog.
baby. You know, you deserve it, baby. You deserve it, baby. You deserve it. But no, but seriously though, but going back to your upbringing though and your history, I think that kind of sets up the point of which I was trying to make or trying to get at, which is, you know, you still understand what struggle feels like. You understand what hard work feels like. You understand what discipline and putting your priorities and organizations feels like. And that was important for your family to stay afloat and to raise you and Amber to be great young people who have gone on to be great, successful adults. And that's important. And having ownership and having a home matters. Now, so for me, that conversation around affordable housing is real because I have joined the Orange County Advisory Board for Affordable Housing. So I talk to a lot of people in Orange County, Orlando, where we live, about the issues that they're having in having home ownership, right? You're in Orlando where you have all the parks, Universal, Disney, SeaWorld. So you have a lot of visitors coming in. The price of land goes up. These are a lot of service industry jobs. So imagine people working for Disney who are not making a lot of money, but they live in this expensive place where everybody wants to be and have attractions and have Airbnbs and buy up the market. And so they price you out of the market. So you're not able to own that home. And having that ownership is so, so critical. Why is it critical? To me, I think it gives you the chance to say, this is mine, right? This is the center of my peace. This is my kingdom. This is my abode. This is where I can decompress. I can't tell you how many times I've come home to LaToya, my wife, and say to her, man, today was a rough day in the operating room. You know, things didn't just go as smooth as I wanted to go. And she would ask me, you know, well, how'd you feel and what'd you do and tell me about it. But just being there under a roof and being able to share that space where I feel safe, I feel comfortable, I feel the energy, man, it just feels amazing. Now, you think about people who are unhoused, you know, just to drop a couple stats, right? I mean, 200, 250 people are unhoused every day here in Orlando, Florida.
Meaning they lost their house.
They've lost their house, they're living on the street or somewhere that's inhabitable for a human. The life expectancy of those people should be 75, 80 years old, like it is for normal for people who are home.
House,
But for those people who are unhoused, it drops to like 55 years of age. And they usually die from HIV, pulmonary disease, they die from mental health issues. Substance abuse is the biggest killer of people who are unhoused. And so it's like, not only do you not have the home, but then you run into these economic problems, these health issues, these social problems, and how do you get these people back in line? So, I mean, for people like us, I mean, there are circles that we can talk to, that we can be around for people who are listening to us. There are opportunities to talk to individuals and spread the word about programs that are coming from the state of Florida or the state wherever you live, the government, the federal government, there are opportunities to sort of learn about down payment assistance and all these other things. So this should continue to push that agenda of let's get people in homes, let's get people, being comfortable and feeling quote unquote normal. And I think once you start there, then the other aspects that these individuals are exposed to, the health issues that they're exposed to, the economic issues they're exposed to, the lack of having jobs and having sufficient income, these things, these may be assuaged a little bit down the line, but it's a serious conversation.
But my question too is, right, so let's say 20 years ago, if you bought a house for $300,000,
Yeah.
it was a nice house, you know what I mean? Like a super nice house.
True.
And now if you go to most big cities, man, $300,000 might get you a 1-bedroom condo.
Yeah, not much at all.
But why? Is it inflation? Is it just where the economy is? Is it potential war? Like, is it I guess the flux with politics and the president and one side one person, one side another person? Like, what do you think is the actual cause for the crisis? Because it is technically a crisis. People are losing their homes or can't afford to get a home.
Yeah, no, I think it's multifactorial. I mean, there's several factors. I think one of which is land is so valuable now, and so in order for these landowners to make their money or at least draw even, they have to hike up the rent or hike up the price of these homes that they have, and and so that's difficult. I also think the wages that people are making are not great either, right? I mean, not everybody's a first-round draft pick.
You keep coming in. My old job.
You know, I'm just saying, brother. You know,
no, I know that.
I saw you. I was very proud of you.
Nah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
When I saw that, I said, yeah. Some of us were 6-rounders.
Come on, bro.
$70,000 guaranteed signing bonus, 6th round, 207 pick for the Tennessee Titans. Others of us, 1st-round picks. But I was super proud of you. But, not everybody gets a start like that, right? That early. How old were you when you got drafted?
I was 22.
22. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. That puts you in a whole different tax bracket right away, right? You go from eating Guthrie's in that gut box to eating Ruth Chris, man.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Full of cheese on my crackers. Yeah. This is my trainees always say, Anthony Streets, full of cheese on your crackers.
Hey, from Winn-Dixie and Piggly Wiggly to now to now Trader Joe's.
Hey, yeah.
Oh man, but no, it's a real thing because I think that with the rising cost of land and then the lowering cost of wages or even trying to get good employment, I think all of it sort of just is hitting a nidus of trouble and a crisis, as you mentioned. I think crisis is the perfect word for it, for sure.
But also I think the young person too is probably more discouraged now than ever, like more than ever, to actually try to own a home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because again, most can't even afford to pay their rent. And it's just like how, and I don't even know if did the pandemic probably cause some of that too? Like,
I think so.
Because one thing about it, where I live down in South Florida, bro, you can't tell me that the economy is that bad. Because every day I see a new building, I see a new store, I see a remodeled grocery store or remodeled Whole Foods or something like that. Like, there's money. To me, it just seems like there's
shopping Whole Foods.
No. I don't shop at Whole Foods. I don't shop at Whole Foods. I said I see.
Didn't you tell me that your daughter does not eat processed foods? Like you go get all natural stuff?
She does not. But if you really think about it, we want to get into the weeds here.
Fantastic.
Technically, you're saving money by just cooking organic food.
Look, baby, you can't hide
You
money.
are though. No, but you are.
You can't hide money, baby.
No. You're not even spending time, or you're not even spending money. You're really spending time.
Okay.
Think about it. My wife is the one that taught me that.
Hey,
again, my wife from the country in Europe. You know what I'm saying? So again, like all that McDonald's and Wendy's kind of went out the door, and it's true though, because again, but see, this kind of ties into.
My wife's from the South, man. Cajun food all day.
This ties into the housing crisis as well, and it's a very small, minute thing, right? So if you spend a lot of your, I guess, exposable cash or expendable money, right, on fast food, on Ubers all the time, instead of just riding a bike, you know what I mean? Like little small changes actually end up to big changes too. You know what I mean? If you make those little small incremental things. And so again, I don't care how much money you have.
But can we talk about how you only stay at Four Seasons though? What's that act that you riding bikes?
Hey man,
South Florida.
Hey man,
you only stay in the Four Seasons.
Now you the one that told me about the Four Seasons. That's the funniest part. It's crazy you talking like that. But again, bro, like Well, look, we both work hard too, though.
True.
You know what I mean? So I genuinely believe in work hard, play hard. I genuinely believe that.
No,
You know what I mean?
right,
And so,
right.
granted, I'm not necessarily throwing it in nobody's face, but yeah, I mean, I work my tail off for sure. And so, again, but these were commitments that I felt like I made and decisions I made when I was 12,
Yeah.
when I was 13. You know what I mean? Like I think everybody has 24 hours to make decisions to do this or to do that, right?
Yeah.
Now I do agree everyone doesn't necessarily have, again, I said this earlier, the same resources, the same push. They may not have a dad or a mom or an uncle or a grandpa that is invested in them as a scholar or as an athlete or as, you know, somebody that's trying to aspire to be something bigger than what they already are. I was very fortunate to have both my parents and just my grandmas, everybody, really my entire family always said, hey man, you can. Funny enough, my dad, I remember when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I think I said, I can't fix this or whatever. Like I was trying to fix a game or something like that. And he's like, hey man, nah. I don't ever want you to say I can't.
Boom.
And I'm talking about my dad was a stickler on that for until I was 18. And even now, you know, I'm 34 years old. And if I catch myself saying I can't, I'm like, nah, for real, Dad, I can't do this. Like, I need you to come here and fix it. But in all seriousness, he was setting a tone for me as a child to think I can achieve something.
Yeah.
And so I really think when I think of, you know, Four Seasons and all that kind of stuff, cool, I could stay there. But like, you know, those were also commitments and decisions I made, you know, when I was young. But again, going back to the housing, I just think a lot of people that, especially young people our age, they're probably discouraged now because, you know, I even see some stuff on Instagram, man. Like, I think a young lady was going through like her expenses and like, hey, this is my salary off of nurses. I think it was like a nurse talking about her salary and how she pays for this, she pays for this, she pays for this. And it's hard. It really is hard out there. It's super hard. I don't really know how to fix it. You know what I mean? Like, or how someone could fix it and how it's going to actually get better.
No, definitely. You're right. And I think you mentioned something with social media being key too. We as young people move a lot based on what social media says or does. It's truly influential, right? So if you're looking at
Following for a reason.
no,
Yeah.
no doubt. If
Following
you're
for a
seeing
reason.
some reel that pops up that talks about, oh, this is the day in my life of being, you know, a New Yorker, and you wake up with, you know, floor to ceiling walls,
Right,
and you're doing some
right,
meditation,
right.
and you're cooking plants and you're
Right.
meditating.
Yep,
And,
got your coffee brewing and all that.
brewing.
Yeah.
Man, that's not real life,
Right.
man. You know, but
We've talked about those before. Some of them are fly though. I ain't gonna lie. Some of them are cool.
man, don't ever let me see you doing a vlog, brother. I
I
promise
literally remember you sending me one. He's like, hey, dog. It's a little, I ain't gonna say what you said, but yeah, it was funny. Yeah.
Nah, we can't do it. Can't
That's
do it.
all good.
But the influence is there, man, and it's real.
Right.
And I think, you know, living within means is obviously important.
Exactly.
Being
That's what it is,
money.
I think. Yeah, that's what it is.
Definitely. Then there's other aspects that I was mentioning that sometimes you don't ask for, right? Some of the health crises that you may have. Again, mental health is a huge thing that it hits all walks of people. It doesn't matter who you look like. It doesn't discriminate. That can also send you in a spiral downward to where, you know, you're unhoused or living on couches and trying to figure it out for yourself. So it's a real problem. I think it's going to take, as I mentioned, it being a multifactorial issue and a multi-pronged issue, it's going to take a multi-pronged approach to trying to fix it. From people walking all parts of life to influence, to create resources, to advocate, to change policy, to add money to sort of complex situations, to try to find more job placements for people too, so they can own and afford homes. And you know, that's super important.
Well, I just, something popped in my mind as you're talking, and obviously you're a neurosurgeon, so I don't know why you keep trying to come at me as a first round pick,
Look,
bro.
man.
You're doing pretty good too.
Look, man.
And you could do that for another 30, 40 years, bro. So
absolutely right.
don't come at me.
You're absolutely right.
All right, but
absolutely right.
but in all seriousness, like what was something that you noticed? Because I consider that success, bro. Like seriously, to be a surgeon, to be a neurosurgeon, that is success. So what were some of the conversations that you had with your peers, right? Like whether it was about housing, whether it was about women empowerment and women excellence. And because I know there's some women that are big time surgeons as well. There's women that have their own dental offices, like your wife, you know what I mean? So like, what are some of those maybe got conversations and things that you hear often that kind of lead to some of that success that some of the listeners can kind of chime into?
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing that I consistently hear over and over and over again, whether we're talking about affordable housing in our sort of small group of neurosurgeons, whether we're talking about women empowerment, the movement, the one thing that keeps coming up is have mentors. Mentorship. And even in the practice of neurosurgery, I'm going into pediatric neurosurgery, so I'll be working on kids specifically, doing neuroendoscopy, cranial vault reconstructions, different brain tumors in children. I love that population, and I love the breadth of skill you can have with it. The conversation around neurosurgery is always mentorship. Who is someone older, more seasoned, more experienced that you can tap into, look to, and be around that can sort of guide and move you to where you want to be. And if you're trying to get a new home, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to move your family certain places, who can you talk to who's older than you, whose
Right.
word and whose insight that you value, who can you tap into to sort of help with those challenging things? So mentorship is huge. I love mentorship.
Like that.
My wife and I have a group called the Honor Roll. It's a group of about 15 young black men who are either in med school, pre-med, or pre-law. And we talk to them every week, every month or so, about the pearls of success, some of the inside tricks that they don't really
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I kind of
That's
give them a
good.
sneak peek
Pay
on
it
this is
forward.
what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually bringing this group here to Orlando to have a retreat where we all get to be together. We'll do a service organization together. We'll do a service sort of day. We'll go to church together. We'll fellowship. We'll bond. It's a safe space for us to kind of talk about each other's journey and just connect on a very, very deep level. And I'm bringing in some guest speakers who will speak to them as well, pour life into them. So mentorship is huge. That's a conversation that always happens. You have to find someone who's done it before,
Right.
who's done it well, and try to follow their footsteps, not try to recreate the wheel.
Sure.
When I think about brain surgery or spine surgery, there are steps to it. Just like there are steps to, building a home, or steps to creating a great meal, a gourmet meal.
Yeah.
Follow the steps. And so I follow the steps that I've been taught by mentors who taught me, and I'll continue to follow those steps. And if there's something I can tweak or add my own
Sure,
style
sure,
to
sure.
something, I'll
Right,
do it along
right.
the way. But I'm not going to deviate from the successful path
been
of
set.
this is
Yeah,
how you take out a brain
yeah.
tumor. This is how you
That's
stop
good.
a seizure. This is how you remove a blood clot from someone's head. My mentors taught me that. And so in these conversations that you were mentioning, mentorship's huge, man.
Yeah, but as I hear mentorship, the first thing that came to mind was you got to drop your ego too.
That's true.
Because in order to get mentored, you cannot have an ego, right? Like, and I think that's a lot of people's issue. And even mine, I think back on my time in the NFL, I wish I would have reached out more to my mentors, to other men that might have played my position, or coaches that might have coached my position who maybe weren't in the game anymore. And guys that I would meet, at like an NFLPA luncheon, or through passing, just traveling, going to a different camp or something like that during the off season. Because that stuff's important, man. And I try to pour that into guys that I run into now. But you hit that on the head, man. That mentorship really will save you so much time too. You know what I mean? Like, because again, just like we're talking about housing, like I made some bad decisions financially as well. Just like with cars, I had this affinity for buying all these different cars. And I think back, bro, like out of all the vehicles, I'm not saying this to brag. If I'd have bought, I'm talking about 20 less. It's so embarrassing saying 20 less cars. I know, no.
20?
But I think back, if I spent that, no, but seriously, if I spent those resources on property, you know what I'm saying? Like, but maybe a mentor would have said, hey, son, like, relax. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I try to tell young guys now. Take your time. I was very impulsive. You know what I mean? I was also going through some stuff too, but like, and I think that kind of caused my impulsiveness, to be real. But I think the key when I hear mentorship, that is super important, but you also cannot have an ego.
That's true.
And I feel like in order to be successful, you have to have a level of pride about yourself and how you go about your business every day. But at the same time, you cannot have that ego to where you don't think you can take any type of critique from somebody.
Yeah.
Because none of us are perfect.
Not at all.
We all make mistakes.
You have to recognize that you have deficiencies, or you have things that you want to get better at. And you have to be willing, like you said, to suppress that ego, to allow that mentorship to fill that void of what I'm lacking, right? And that's important. The ability to be coachable,
Right.
and we always talk about that in the football field, but it exists in other aspects of life too. Are you going to be willing to listen, to submit yourself to a process? And, as you mentioned, just sort of suppress that ego and allow this person who has wise insight and who is willing to invest in you, right? Like, you're not paying for this mentorship. This person is actually saying, I see something in you and I want to help you.
Right.
And so allow them to help you.
Right.
And being humble is a huge part of that.
How would you say to kind of navigate with that too, though? Because some people will try to help you, but they have a little bit of an incentive behind their cause to help you? Like, what advice would you give somebody to kind of vet that out? Because I've experienced that as well, where I've met people who seemingly are trying to help me, and I can tell some stories. As we have more podcasts, I'm gonna tell some real stories
Tell the
now.
stories,
Because
man.
you hear some, I mean, bro, I went through some wild stuff, man. Like from agents or people that were trying to sell me some suits. Like I got all kind of wild stories. And again, when you're gullible and you're young, and you come into whatever, right? Whether it's money or it's status or it's fame or a different walk of life that I'm not used to. I was very green. I was very much a Guthrie's box kind of guy. You know what I mean? I was very much a Whataburger kind of guy. And so that was kind of how I was raised, and that's all I really knew. And so I think it's also important to kind of address when you do have a mentor, somebody that's trying to help you, really also being able to vet when they have your real benefit at heart and not just trying to hustle you or trying to get over on you too.
That is so key. And I honestly, I feel knowing you for as long as I know you, I think that you have a gauge on people and a good spirit of discernment.
Yeah.
That is huge, right?
Yeah.
And I think mine is okay, but I know who has it better than me. My mother, my wife, and my brother McKinley, who you know very well.
Sure.
My brother Mac and Latoya, I mean, they're like my buffers, man. I mean, if somebody wants to like approach me, they got to go through that first, and to kind of like get vetted and sort of like sift through and see if their agenda is real, and then we can have.
But even before you had, well, obviously you've always had your brother Mac, and shout out to Mac, big dog.
Come on now.
But before you married Latoya, like how would you have kind of tried to navigate that for like the single man or woman out there that's trying to also figure out and try to achieve something, but at the same time afraid to really put themselves out there because there's so much wishy-washy stuff going on?
Yeah, I think that reluctance to, as you said, put yourself out there or to try to achieve or to be vulnerable so that you can, accept some of that mentorship, may see you losing out on opportunities that other people who are a little bit more aggressive, other people who are forthright and very sort of steadfast on who they want to be and where they want to go, they may reach that goal because they said, look, I'm willing to take this loss or take this hit, even if this person maybe has ulterior motives and a different kind of agenda. I'm still willing to put myself on the line to get this done, knowing that I'm not going to fully expose myself or be completely removed or taken off my track if this person does end up being fraudulent or whatever the case may be. But I'm still going to know that I'm going to treat this situation as a respectful, civil human being. I'm going to look at this relationship as something where I can be helped from this, and I'm going to use it to the best of my ability, and pray that things work out as they do, and know that sometimes they don't, but it's okay, because the best way to make God laugh is to have a well laid out plan. It doesn't always go straight, right? Sometimes your road is circuitous. Sometimes your road takes a left detour right, and you got to get there how you get there. And the people who are resilient, who are get themselves up, brush themselves off, and say, I'm not going to be stopped. As Florida hip hop would say, can't stop my vibe. You already know what time it is. Let's keep moving. I love those kind of individuals because that success, just to me, just hits harder. When I see people who are super successful, who are, who have gone through so much, who have come from almost nothing, or who just had to face a lot of challenges in their life and they still made it, you realize that, as you were mentioning earlier, the decisions they've had to make at point A, point B, point C down the road, they had to make the right decisions to sort of navigate this water that was tortuous for them, that was stressful for them, but they still made it on the other side. And their testimony is going to be so great. And those people have a great reward at the other end of it. And that's exciting for people when they are able to accomplish that.
How do you deal with when you make a mistake?
Probably the same way you do, man. I think when I make a mistake, I look at it as an opportunity to learn. I look at it as an opportunity to continue to grow. I see it as a moment that says, let's refocus. Like there's a reason that maybe I hit this artery, right? Maybe I just wasn't as prepared, or maybe I didn't move my hand the right way. Maybe I just had, I didn't study that this vein was going to course around the tumor this way.
And you already in there at this point.
I'm already in there.
So it's like...
But I'll tell you, the next time, brother, I am looking for that vein, right? If I see this again, it's going to be imprinted in my head. I got to do it right. And I have to make sure that I'm aware of this mistake that I fell into once. It's not going to happen a second time. What about yourself? When you make a mistake, what's kind of your...
I think the biggest thing that I've learned through time when I have made mistakes is giving myself grace. Because for a lot of my young adult life, I was so caught up on being perfect. I was so caught up on trying to prove this and trying to prove that, which I still am. Like again, that I don't know if that's ego or if that's just my mentality, my personality. Like I like to win. You know what I mean? I like to succeed. I like to, for people to say, man, you did a good job. And like, I appreciate that. I like feedback, right? And I also like to be told when I did not do a good job so I can fix it. You know what I mean? When I would go back and watch tape of me at practice, or like, hey, I didn't do that. I was more caught up on the things that I did not do well versus the perfect fade throw that I made, or the nice seam ball that I hit, or the right check at the line of scrimmage to get into a run play that I made. I was more caught up on what did I not do well. So I think I had to learn a balance with that, because again, that's I think what my children have taught me. Like, I made a lot of mistakes as a dad, right? Like, it just, of course, I'm always there, but in the sense of mixing a bottle and my wife has to come back and fix it, or I'm putting the diaper and I'm putting the little, the little piece over it, and my wife comes back and does it over again. I think that's just her thing that she likes to do. But these are little small mistakes that I know I made.
Did your wife refold your clothes too? Because
I don't even bother folding them no more. Yeah, because she does not like how I fold towels, t-shirts, none of that stuff. It is what it is, though. But I'm not complaining about that either. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be. You know what I'm saying? We blessed. But in all seriousness, I think just having that grace has been always something that I've learned. I've developed that. And not being so hard on myself, you know what I mean? And being okay making a mistake. Yeah. And you said this too, like when you do lose, I always believe that, man, a loss is really a lesson.
There's no question.
You know what I mean? Like, as long as you take it and you go back and you say, hey, look, how can I fix this so it doesn't happen again? And when I think back to my playing career, especially when I was in the NFL, I wanted to show, hey, man, this is why I was picked here. This is why this is what I can do for this city. Like, I had all that baggage on my shoulders, which rightfully so. That is the job. That's part of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. But at the same time, I had teammates when I went to other teams and I was a backup and I was watching the starter. They had a much more like, yo, I'm going to go out here and have some fun. I'm going to go out here and let it rip. I'm going to go out here, and if I throw a pick, I really don't care. And I had teammates like that. Yeah. And I felt like those guys were successful because of that. Yeah. One of our brothers at Florida State, Jameis Winston, one thing I always have told J-Boo, and we call him J-Boo, that I loved about him is his short-term memory, bro. Yeah. If Jameis made a mistake in practice, and this is when he was a true freshman, he was redshirting. And, I was one of those guys, if I threw a pick in 707, it bothered me, bro, like until the next day.
I remember when we were asking you when you were on the scout team as a redshirt freshman, we were like, throw us some picks.
I was like,
because we want to get picks. Like, right. Coach was like, you got to see the ball.
Andrews is yelling at me all the time.
Yeah. And he was like,
nah, I can't do it.
Like, no,
can't do it, dog. Can't do it. Can't put it on tape.
I
right?
remember that.
But again, like, that's just how I was. Yeah. And not that I ever was okay making a mistake, right? But I think the teammates that I had that I would watch, just kind of their posture or their bravado, and they would really let that stuff just kind of fall off their shoulders and move on to the next play. I think that's key in life, because we're all going to make mistakes. I'm going to leave out here and I'm going to make a mistake at some point in another 20 minutes. You know what I mean? But at this point now in my life, I'm okay making that mistake, because now I'm like, you know what? It's not a big deal, man. Don't stress it. Don't move on, or obviously move on. Do move on, and try not to make that same mistake twice. Because it's one thing to say it to somebody, but I think it's also another thing to actually practice that and actually really do it in your own life. So,
you know what's not a mistake, E? Mm-hmm. This podcast.
Yes, sir.
And it's been
solid,
a blessing,
man.
Brother. For sure.
Well, look, let's finish it up with a fresh takeaway. Again, this is the Freshman Podcast. So, Myron, you can lead us off, man. You got a fresh takeaway from our conversation today.
My fresh takeaway from today is new beginnings, man. Mm-hmm. New beginnings of how we started as best friends. Long time ago, new beginnings of a podcast that we feel can motivate, inspire, and lead people to being better versions of themselves. New beginnings of how we think about the greatness and the excellence, pure excellence of women here and around the world.
Yes.
And as fathers trying to raise young women to be that and be great in whatever it is they want to do. New beginnings are sometimes scary, but we should embrace them, because they are doors that lead to a future that you might not even know existed. I mean, I didn't know we were going to have this podcast until we talked about it and put some things together, put the team in place to make it happen. So my fresh takeaway, man, new beginnings. Don't be scared of them. Go attack them, and know that on the other side of that door, there could be a blessing for you waiting.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I would say my fresh takeaway is, again, just to be open-minded. I think as we're having these conversations, every time I talk to you anyways, as my big brother, I always learn something. right? And I think the biggest takeaway that I have from this pod specifically, and this is episode 1, all right, is just to have an open mind, be okay making mistakes, and also, appreciate those that are in your life that are really guiding you in those right directions. Again, we talked about our mothers, we talked about our wives, and whether it's a woman or it's a man, like just also be able to appreciate that. Don't take that for granted, because I think that's something that's really important, to also give love to those that are giving you love and that are actually trying to help guide you throughout life, man. So
Love it.
it's been good, man. Good stuff, bro. Yes, sir. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in to the Freshman Podcast. Be sure to stay locked in with us. Follow all our social media handles down below. And let's keep this thing rolling.
No doubt.